Good evening. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education meeting, general meeting of March 20th, 2016. Mr. Centers, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonifield.
Present.
Mrs. Bradford.
Present.
Mrs. Frank.
Present.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Present.
Mr. Johnson. Here. Mr. Centers is here, and President Burton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Mrs. Jarvis, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
With pleasure. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We welcome all of you to the meeting this evening. Some of our meetings are very full, some are a little more sparse, so it's always an honor to have so many guests in our audience this evening, especially when we have so many things to celebrate. You'll notice we have several honorees at the beginning portion of our meeting, so we welcome our special guests and their family members at this time. If you do not have an agenda and you are in our room with us this evening, there are agendas on the table just outside the door, so please feel free to help yourself if you'd like one. Also, if you plan on participating in audience communications, there are blue slips out on the table also that we would like you to fill out if you don't mind, if you'd like to participate in that portion of the meeting. If you are watching from home and you'd like to follow along with an agenda, they can be found on our website, and that is at www.livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over the board tab, you can drop down to agendas and follow right along with our meeting. This type of meeting this evening is called a general meeting, or what we can refer to at times as a voting meeting. And what we mean by that is that the items that are coming before the board this evening have been discussed at typically at least 2 other meetings prior to this evening. We start off with most items at a study session, and then we go on to a committee of the whole meeting. And it's at those types of meetings where we have a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth, a lot of questions and answers. So if you're interested in a lot of the background of the decisions that come before the board, I do encourage you to attend or tune into one of those meetings. That's where you'll see a whole lot more discussion on items. By the time items come to this type of meeting, our general meeting that we're going to take votes on, you may not see the depth of discussion. Please understand that that is not because we take these items lightly, but rather it's because we have beat them up for at least a couple of meetings before they come to us tonight, and there aren't that many questions left to ask and answer. What we're going to do this evening is the beginning portion of our meeting. We are going to have several folks that we are honoring for accomplishments in the district, after which, after item 3E, we're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute break so that we can all congratulate those honorees. So if you kind of have that kind of a timeline in mind, you'll know what to expect this evening. We're going to go on to the next item on our agenda, which is item 3, communications. Mrs. Jenkins.
Thank you, and good evening, President Burton, members of the board, Superintendent Oquist. Tonight, first up on the communications items, we have our student art gallery. Tonight we're continuing on with the program that began several years ago now. I think we're in our fourth school year with the program. The program monthly recognizes the artistic talents of our students. And as you can see on the board behind you, we have some quite amazing work on display again this month. Our featured artists this month are from Emerson Middle School under the direction of art teacher Tracy Altman. And Ms. Altman is with us in the audience. Thanks for being here. The students were selected from all of the art classes in 7th and 8th grade at Emerson, so this is quite an honor. Each student will receive a certificate, and the certificate reads Livonia Public Schools Certificate of Recognition, Student Art Gallery, Featured Artist, selected to represent the Emerson Middle School Art Department at the Board of Education office, March 20th, 2017. That is signed by the superintendent and myself. And a little side note, we would especially like to thank those students who just returned yesterday from a very long bus trip from Washington, D.C. And we thank them for being here despite probably being super tired. And we all know that they did go to school this morning, right? So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to our Emerson Middle School Art Department honorees. First up, we have Brandon Adamus, who is an 8th grader. Brandon? Come on up.
And family members, if you would like to position yourself where you can take a photo of your student, you may feel free to do so, and you can also have a photo opportunity at the break.
Here you are, Brandon. Congratulations. And which piece is yours?
The crunch bar.
Okay. And how did you create that?
Just by looking at a picture of the crunch bar I had in front of me, and I just used my ruler, my pencils, and paint.
Okay. And that's acrylic paint you use?
Yeah.
Okay, very nice. Very eye-catching. Thank you. Congratulations. Our next honoree is Madeline Johnson. Madeline is a 7th grade student at Emerson, and I did not touch base with her ahead of time. Okay, we will hold Madeline's certificate and make sure that she receives that. Next up, we have Mr. Jackson Lewis. Jackson is a 8th grade student. Jackson? Jackson, which piece is yours?
One in the top.
Okay, and what kind of medium is that?
I just used paint.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Congratulations. Next up, we have Caitlyn Playtech, but Caitlyn's mom let me know that they had other engagements this evening, so she was unable to join us, but we will also make sure that she receives her certificate. Caitlyn is an 8th grade student as well, and I believe Caitlyn's is the self-portrait pencil drawing. Okay, I hope that I got that right. Next up, we have Jane Schwartz. Jane Schwartz is also an 8th grade student. Okay. This is yours? Okay, very nice. Was that with paint or? Watercolor paint. Okay, very nice. Thank you. Congratulations.
And again,
And that concludes our presentation for this evening. Join me once again in thanking these artists for sharing their work with us. For about the next month or so, you may see some of these pieces across the street at the Livonia Civic Library for April's Student Art Gallery across the street, the big show. So keep your eye out for these talented pieces as well, the talented artists. Thank you.
and to the artists and their parents, at the break time, if you'd like to come up near the artworks and take some other photos, you're certainly welcome to do so. I do say this kind of comment at most of our art honoree evenings. We are continually amazed by what our art students can do. And most, if not all, of my board members will agree with me. It is because we couldn't do this to save our lives. So it's amazing what you can create, and we thank you so much for sharing it with us. It beats the heck out of a boring beige wall behind us instead. So thank you very much. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 3B, the Golden Apple Award to Parent and Grandparent Volunteers. Mrs.
Okay,
Jenkins.
thank you, President Burton. It is my pleasure to recognize not one, but two incredible volunteers who go above and beyond for our students and our staff at two of our elementary schools. As you know, the Golden Apple Award is issued to those who give of their time and talents to our schools and do so with genuine care and unmatched dedication. Tonight, we're honoring two individuals who are that very definition. We'll begin by calling Miss Kathy Baldwin to join me at the podium. Okay, not up here. I'm going to brag about you a little bit. Okay? Kathy Baldwin is affectionately known as Nanny at Cass Elementary, where she volunteers 5 days a week as a noon monitor and is a go-to volunteer who can be found doing anything from quizzing students with flashcards or working on letter sounds with kindergartners to running the laminating machine. I hear she is a fantastic laminator. It takes the skill. And meticulously trimming each piece for her teachers who she helps. Or she can be found decorating a bulletin board to make sure all students and staff know the district's community with character traits. She's the grandmother to third grader Brandon and began volunteering about 3 years ago. Does that sound about right? Okay. 2 years ago, she helped with the student store, and staff members at CAS immediately recognized her passion for children and her dedication to helping others. Noticing that she would stay with the students long after the student store had closed, and she would count money with the students and play games. She was nominated by staff member and student assistance provider Jen Wilson, and Jen is with us this evening. Thanks for being here.
Here, behind us.
In the fan club here, along with Cass Elementary Principal Bridget Regan, I see. So Jen Wilson had this to say about you, Kathy, Manny. She is one of the most thoughtful and kind people I know. She adds that anytime Kathy sees a need, she does not hesitate in making a purchase or making an effort to ensure everything and everyone is well cared for. Principal Bridget Regan said, "Nanny is so deserving of this award. She embodies what this award represents. She works tirelessly at our school, and I can't think of a more deserving person." And with that, I would like to ask Board Trustee Tammy Bonifield to join us at the podium and present Ms. Baldwin with the Golden Apple Award.
Thank you so much.
I have a few words as well to say. According to the staff at Cass Elementary, Kathy is loved by all students. She cares deeply about the students, and she is more than a noon monitor. She works with the students every day with high-frequency words on flashcards and so much more. And a quote from the nomination form is, "Anything Cass needs, Kathy is the first to find the way to get it." She is constantly giving her time and resources to all the students at Cass Elementary. We can't thank you enough. It's
Thank
a
you so
volunteer.
much. Mrs. Regan said I could say a couple of words, not more than 30 seconds.
There's no music, no one's, no one's.
Okay. Mrs. Regan and Mrs. Wilson and my entire class family, I'm thankful for being inspired by each of you. I thank you for nominating me for this prestigious award. And thank you to the Superintendent and the Board of Education for this honor. I'm very honored. Thank you.
Our second Golden Apple Award recipient is also the epitome of this award description and criteria. I'd like to invite Heather Sullivan to join me at the podium. Okay, Heather is a parent volunteer at Roosevelt Elementary who commits her time and talent each week to working with children and helping the staff in many ways. She was nominated by Roosevelt staff members Cindy Letka, Amy Truchon, and Annette Garbett. In the nomination, Heather is described as being enthusiastic about volunteering at Roosevelt, always having a smile on her face and a kind, caring demeanor. Oh, I'll do this. To quote from the nomination, Heather is working hard. Heather is willing to work hard anywhere help is needed. She can be seen assisting teachers with crafts, working on PTA-sponsored activities, reading with students, playing and making math games, decorating and hanging bulletin boards, applying Band-Aids, finding lost items, wiping tears, cleaning up spills, or anything else that is needed. Her nominators went on to say that Heather is creative and also quite good on computers, which comes in handy when showing students how to use various programs and apps on the computers. Because she has been working with children for so many years, she is able to anticipate the needs of students and proceed confidently in assisting them. Heather is also very organized, which is useful when managing student book boxes and take-home books in the classroom. Always a challenge. She always makes sure the students have interesting reading materials each week. She is known to go out of her way for kids. In one instance, Heather was willing to battle Black Friday crowds at the stores in search of the best deal on gifts for first grade class of students, so they could give their parents gifts. She's been known to purchase materials and create clever bulletin boards for school-wide programs such as the Dr. Seuss celebration. It's always fun. Interestingly and wisely, Heather has also enlisted the help of her husband at times, on numerous occasions, I note, actually, to assist students and help staff at Roosevelt. They were both instrumental in helping teachers unpack boxes and set up their classrooms after the school was renovated. To quote from the nomination, the Sullivans believe in giving to others. They are teaching and raising their children with this selfless attitude as well. Principal Bill Green wholeheartedly supported the nomination, saying that he has been grateful for Heather's volunteerism since he first became Roosevelt's principal in the fall of 2015. He immediately noticed how competent she is in the classroom and how comfortable the children feel around her. Mr. Green sends his congrats. He was unable to join us this evening. And with that, I'd like to ask Board Trustee Karen Bradford to join us at the podium.
Congratulations. Here's your reward. It's pretty fitting that I'm up here because last week I happened to be at Roosevelt and I was in a classroom doing the March's Reading Month, and guess who was in there? Volunteering. Heather. So I had the pleasure of meeting her, and I know that she spends time at Roosevelt. So we're so happy and proud. I have a few things to share. According to the staff at Roosevelt Elementary, Heather always comes to Roosevelt with a smile on her face. No tears, right? All smiles. She always has an enthusiastic attitude, I can tell. She's kind, friendly, and caring. Heather always has a plan and knows exactly what needs to be done, and she does it with confidence and efficiency. And here's a quote from the nomination form. Heather is a blessing to our school, teachers, and community. She has a strong spirit of giving and caring for others. On behalf of Superintendent Oquist and the Board of Ed, we're just so happy that you give of your time to the district, and thanks for all you do, and congratulations.
Thank you so much to the board and to Ms. Oquist and to Ms. Ledka and the other teachers that nominated me. This is the greatest honor. I love kids. I love being at the school, and I want the best. I want the best for our community, and I think the greatest thing you can do is go into a school and see what these teachers do. They work hard, and they appreciate any help that people can give them, even if it's just helping at home and doing something. And I feel my life has been so enriched by being in the classroom and being with these kids on a daily basis. Thank you so much.
We are so thankful to Kathy and to Heather and for the examples that they are of so very, very many people in our district. As Kathy and I were talking before the meeting, we are so blessed in this district to have so many parent volunteers and grandparent volunteers in our buildings, and we are just so thrilled this evening to honor Kathy and Heather as some of our just shining stars in that area. Thank you. Next on our agenda is item 3C, recognition of state wrestling champion Nathan Atienza from Franklin High School.
Thank you, President Burton. As football coaching great Vince Lombardi once said, the price of success is hard work, dedication to the job at hand, and the determination that whether we win or lose, we have applied the best of ourselves to the task at hand. Our next honoree knows this price, he knows the success, and he knows a thing or two about determination and grit. In fact, he knows these things so well, he has not only achieved the highest level of success in his sport once, he has done it twice in a row. And he is a high school senior, which is just amazing. We're betting that Michigan State hopes this trend will continue as Nathan Atienza joins the wrestling team next school year. Ladies and gentlemen, in an encore presentation, I'd like to introduce Nathan Atienza, the first ever two-time wrestling state champion in Franklin High School's history. Nathan? Nathan ended the season with 60 wins and just one loss, bringing his career record to 218 wins and just 17 losses in 4 years. This season, Nathan meticulously moved up through the levels of competition, coming away as an all-state. Oh no. Uh-oh. Oh, please stand here. Oh, here it is. Thank goodness. Woo-wee. Okay. Coming away as an all-city champ for the 4th time, a KLAA champ for the 3rd time, and an all-area champ for the 4th time. He is the first wrestler in Franklin High School's history to be a 4-time all-state champion. Nathan, we're so proud of you and your accomplishments. We have this certificate for you, in addition to a resolution, which we'll read in just a moment. Certificate of Achievement. Livonia Public Schools Certificate of Achievement, State Champion Wrestler, Franklin High School, Nathan Atienza, honored by the Board of Education for Outstanding Athletic Achievement, March 20th, 2017. This is signed by the Superintendent and for some reason myself. Okay, there you are. Thank you. I may ask Board Vice President Mark Johnson to join us at the podium.
Mr. Johnson, may we have a motion, please?
Yes. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolution recognizing Franklin High School wrestler Nathan Atienza for capturing the MHSAA Division I Wrestling State Championship in the 152-pound class.
Support.
We had a chorus of support there. I will go with Mrs. Bradford. Mr. Johnson, go ahead and take care of the resolution for us, please.
Nathan, you must have an entire room filled with awards, plaques and trophies and whatnot.
Yeah, I've got a really big box for all that.
Congratulations, Nathan.
Thank you.
I think we've been this way before,
Like
like last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I was a high school athlete myself. I participated in the much less strenuous sport of football. Not by much. This is a great honor for us to have you with all these accomplishments. I think Michigan State is going to be real lucky to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be there.
Great. Unfortunately, got bounced out of the tournament. But oh well, what are you going to do, right? This is the resolution. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District are desirous of publicly recognizing the outstanding accomplishment of students who distinguish themselves during the pursuit of their public education in the school district, and whereas Nathan Atienza, a senior at Franklin High School, has distinguished himself by achieving the 2017 Michigan High School Athletic Association Division I State Championship in the 152-pound class, making him the first ever 2-time state champion wrestler in Franklin High School history. Whereas, in achieving this honor, Nathan's season record is 60-1. Who'd you lose to? Jeez. And he has accumulated 218 career wins. Whereas, this adds to the outstanding accomplishments Nathan has achieved as a Franklin High School wrestler, including being the first 4-time All-State wrestler in Franklin history, a 4-time scholar athlete, that may be the most important, 3-time KLAA champ, 4-time All-Area champ, and serving 3 years as team captain. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Nathan Anza for his outstanding accomplishments in athletics in the school, in the classroom as well, and wish him well in his future endeavors as he applies the discipline and perseverance needed to excel in sports to all areas of his life. Nathan, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for reading the resolution. Now I'd like to ask Coach David Chiola to join us. Coach Chiola would like to say a few words about his star wrestler as well.
Thanks, everyone. Well, you guys went over a lot of his accomplishments. I don't need to rehash that. I will say when I gave the wins, I didn't add his 4 wins at the state meet yet, so he actually had 222 wins, which was really nice. It was quite an accomplishment. The thing that amazed me about him is his leadership ability. We made him a captain as a sophomore, and he was just a great leader. And it's such a nice knowing that I can come out of the locker room or from a coach's meeting, and everything is getting done. The kids are warmed up. Everybody's where they're supposed to be. I never had to worry about that for 3 years. So I'm probably going to miss that as much as his wrestling. And the one thing we were worried about this year was where was the hunger going to come from? He was an undefeated state champ last year, and he signed with Michigan State before the season even started. So what was going to drive him? He had already done it, and he already had a scholarship wrapped up. And he took a loss the second weekend, and we were like, oh, boy. And it was a good match, and it was a good kid. It wasn't that he didn't wrestle well. The kid was tough. But that was the last loss he took then. And it was the first loss he took since his sophomore year. We're like, how was he going to react? And he took it very graciously. He understood what he needed to do to get better. And I don't know where the hunger came from, but after that, he just went on a roll, and he just was pinning kids left and right. He had over 40 pins this year, and he went right through. And the kid he beat in the state finals was a state champ also, so it was quite a match. And it was really nice that he was able to refocus. And the big thing was in practice, we weren't really able to test him much. The kids he wrestled with in practice were JV wrestlers and kids that weren't nearly as good as him. But instead of just demolishing them, he toned down his aggressiveness and his ability to match theirs so they could get a good workout in, total team player. My coaches had to alternate in on him. I did not do that. I tried that in the summer and ended up in a sling. So that was the end of that. But he was able to keep that hunger, and wherever it came from, I know he uses it in the classroom. Something I'm not sure he knows, he's an academic all-state too by carrying a 3.5 GPA while going to the state tournament, which we're very proud of also. So really want to congratulate him, and it was a heck of a 4 years, and really going to miss him.
I just wanted to take the time now to thank everybody for their support over these last 4 years, and thank everybody for coming out tonight and giving me these prestigious awards and honors. It's really rewarding for me and all the hard work I put in. I want to thank my family, first off, for their support and being there for me for these last 4 years. It's meant a lot. I also want to thank Coach Chiola for giving me the opportunity to compete for him and not only make me a better wrestler, but a better man. And then I'd also like to thank Mr. Willenberg. He's here tonight for me. He's been great support for these last 4 years. He's been a source of wisdom and inspiration for me for my years. So just wanted to say thank you for everybody, and that's it, really. Thank you.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bradford, and Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Absolutely. Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford,
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield,
Yes.
Mrs. Frank,
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Center says yes. President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 3D, Read Across America Resolution. Mrs. Jenkins.
Okay, thank you, President Burton.
Hold on a moment. Let me get a motion on the table first.
Oh, sure.
May I have a motion on this, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Frank.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolution in recognition of Read Across America during the month of March 2017.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Jenkins.
Okay, thank you. Recently, I was reminded how magical it is to watch a young child learn how to read. With his little pointer finger guiding him from word to word, from word to marvelous word, I watched my kindergarten nephew, Jackson, tackle the good old one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, classic by Dr. Seuss, just recently. This was just a couple weeks ago. He was so proud to read to us, and I was so proud to watch and listen to this gift that was unfolding before my eyes. Sometimes we can take everyday things like reading for granted. But to help us not only remember how important and wonderful it is to learn to read and to teach kids to read, our school district engages in a month-long party to celebrate reading. Our schools go all out during March's Reading Month on all things related to reading. And you all are probably very familiar with a lot of the activities that happen in the schools during the month of March. There's a proliferation of red and white striped hats, tall hats, reading challenges that go something like this. If the students meet their reading goals, the result is often a principal carrying out some sort of zany challenge. And getting their hair dyed blue or doing something, some other hilarious stunt. We see guest readers from all around the community reading to our students in their classrooms. We see all school read-ins in which family members come to snuggle up on pillows and blankets to share a good book with their favorite student. The list really does go on and on, but the message is the same in every school. Being a reader is like being a rock star in life. To help us celebrate March's Reading Month and Dr. Seuss's birthday, I'd like to ask Trustee Crystal Frank to join us at the podium and read a special resolution from the board. And I'd also like to invite Livonia Education Association President Priscilla David to join us at the podium to receive that resolution.
March's Reading Month is always a volunteer-intensive program, so thank you to all the volunteers who help out with March's Reading Month. Whereas citizens of the Livonia Public Schools School District stand firmly committed to promoting reading as the catalyst for our students' future academic success, their preparation for America's jobs of the future, and their ability to compete in the global economy. And whereas Read Across America, a national celebration of Dr. Seuss's 113th birthday on March 2nd, 2017, is sponsored by the Livonia Education Association in cooperation with the National Education Association and promotes reading and adult involvement in the education of our community students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District call upon their citizens to ensure that every child is reading together with a caring adult throughout the month of March, celebrated today, March 20th, 2017, with the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education. And be it further resolved that this body recommits our community to engage in programs and activities to make America's children the best readers in the world. Thank you.
President Burton, Superintendent Oquist, and members of the school board, I'm very happy and proud to accept this resolution on behalf of all the teachers in our district who work so hard to share their love of reading with the students in front of them every day. I stayed up until 1 o'clock last Saturday night to finish the final chapter of a book titled The Orphan Master's Son. When I finished turning that last page, I couldn't help but marvel at the depth and imagination of the author. But then I immediately started thinking of the people with whom I wanted to share this book. Like a good movie, a delicious meal, a fun-filled event, or an awesome travel experience, books, good reads, are one of life's pleasures that we want to share with others. Books and words and the words within can take me anywhere. They can teach me anything. Well, almost. Books can make me laugh out loud today, but then tomorrow they can find me crying quietly. I can close my eyes and I can imagine I'm flying. Then I can also open my eyes to the world around me. Sometimes it's disasters, it's bounty, and its delights. March, the month devoted to reading, books, magazines, whatever ancient and advanced forms the written word has taken over time, is almost over. But let's not let this month go by without reading with our children, with our grandchildren, sharing words and ideas with all those who are closest to us. Let's pass on to them our love of reading that can and will take us anywhere our hearts desire. Thank you.
We have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Mr. Sanders, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Frank,
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield,
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Center says yes. President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our update is item 3E, district update from the superintendent. For those of you who may have followed our board meetings more closely, you know that we used to have this item near the end of our meeting, and we were finding that a lot of folks had tuned out or gone to bed or done other things, because sometimes our meetings can get kind of lengthy. So we decided to move that up to the beginning of our meeting so that more folks can share in a lot of the comments of our superintendent as she shares challenges and accomplishments of our district.
Thank you, President Burton. I find it hard to believe that anyone would turn off the meeting before it was done. I know my parents, when they're in town, stay until the very end. So
does my mom. Hi, Mom.
yes. Thankfully, they're loyal watchers. We know we have 3.
We've got 3. Yeah.
Well, thank you and congratulations to our students from Emerson who are here this evening for the Student Art Gallery. To our state champion wrestler, what an extraordinary accomplishment. The dedication to your craft is evident. We know that that is not by happenstance. There's a great deal of work that goes into that, and there's a great deal of guidance. And so we thank the teachers and coaches and parents who were a big part of that, of each of our students' success as well. Congratulations to our two deserving Golden Apple awardees this evening. It was great to hear from you both, and you are certainly beloved at your respective schools. Celebrating March is Reading Month. Thank you so much, Mrs. David, for coming up and celebrating with us and accepting the resolution. It is a great time of the year. I know I'm enjoying my visits out to the schools, and I think the board members are as well. We usually pick our favorite books. This year I picked a few new ones to bring out with me. It's great to not only share great books with them, but truly the love we have of being readers in encouraging that in all of our youngsters. It really is so foundational to all that they do in their future. Many thanks to, I'll echo Trustee Frank, who shared that we utilize our volunteers mightily during this month. So in addition to the staff working very hard to prepare March's reading activities, we know we utilize many, many parent volunteers as well. So thank you for that. Last week, members of the board, a few members of cabinet, and I had the opportunity to attend the State of the City event last week. Each year, the mayor provides an update hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. I think we had almost 500 attendees. It was great to hear from Mayor Wright about, again, many successes happening in our city, to share some of the economic growth. As you may have heard, we have Amazon distribution center, which is being built here. We also have a distribution center coming, so some tremendous growth coming to a relatively established city. That's great to hear, and we value our partners across the street. Just want to give a great thanks to our maintenance and operations staff who worked tirelessly during the windstorm. It's hard to believe that this is the first day of spring, although we're assured now no more snow, right? That's it? That's all we have. During our most recent windstorm and the power outages, we had our folks working very early mornings and very late nights. You may think the power's out, what is there to do? Well, there's a lot to do. I won't share everything, but from hardwiring boilers to cutting down trees and branches that have fallen, we know that bringing portable generators in, they work tirelessly, and we appreciate their efforts. Anything you want to add on that?
They did a tremendous job.
Didn't they?
Yes.
We were sharing that there was so much going on in those couple of days that we missed school. So we know that kids get excited about a day off. We often hear their wishes about a day off. But I have to say, we had our staff and administrators working hard to reschedule things like school dances and SAT testing, and there was quite a bit going on. Our communications folks did a great job of getting the word out as well. Congratulations on a number of different fronts. Do we have anyone here from our Livonia Warriors team?
Mrs. Jarvis?
Anyone? Mrs. Jarvis, proud parent. Oh, look at, we have friends in the back. That was like on cue.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. We are so excited, and you may be sharing some of this, but we wanted to share your tremendous success from the weekend prior to this past one. The first competition of the season was held at Centerline, correct? And our Livonia Warriors, comprised of high school students from Franklin, Churchill, and Stevenson, took first place in the first competition of the year, which earned them a berth to states competition. They also won the most prestigious award, the Chairman's Award. So could we give a big round of applause to our robotics team? We are so excited for them, and we are so proud of their accomplishments, and we invite you to join them on April 6th, 7th, and 8th at Churchill High School. Livonia annually hosts the competition. It's fascinating, and we invite you, you may be here to invite them as well to join us, to join you at that competition in April. Congratulations to our musicians from both Churchill and Stevenson. It has been a busy season for them as well. The MSBOA Festival, the District Choral Concert, and most recently the State Solo and Ensemble competition, which took place this weekend. We had many individual and ensemble groups earning a rating of 1, which is a superior rating, and it's earned after putting forth extraordinary dedication and exhibiting precision in their performance. So kudos to all of our talented musicians and their teachers. So a round of applause for them. Continuing the celebration of our students, we have an 8th grade student from Frost. His name is Tejas Mayer. He won first place in an essay contest sponsored by the Farmington Optimist Club. The theme was Chasing Optimism in the Face of Challenges. Sounds pretty appropriate. Congratulations to Tejas, who was awarded a medal and a cash prize. So good for him, an 8th grade student at Frost. As many of you know, we utilize the Leader in Me tenants at many of our schools. Statewide, there's a symposium that's held. It was held in our area this year at the Vista Tech Center. And we had the privilege of visiting and hearing the student panel answer questions from the participants, which numbered in the hundreds. Well, we are very proud to share that the entire student panel consisted of Livonia Public Schools students. Wow. We had 4 students from Emerson Middle School, 2 students from Randolph Elementary, and Anno and principal at Emerson who also served on the staff panel. They were so impressive. And it just so happened my college roommate was in the audience. She's a teacher in a neighboring district, and she texted and said how impressive our students were and how proud we all must be. So we were thrilled to have that. Just a couple more quick updates. I shared with the board an update last week with regard to the MDE's plan for implementing ESSA. So we're going to turn from a lot of congratulations to a little bit of a topic that may not be as exciting for some of our guests. But although the comment period has now ended, as I shared with you, I urge interested parties, and I truly hope that all of us are interested parties, in sharing feedback with our local legislators on the recommendation to utilize the A through F letter grades as part of summarizing the success of a school or a district. Recently, our State Board of Education, led by State Superintendent Whiston, took a unanimous stance against this method of labeling a school or a district, and instead has backed a more recent recommendation to utilize a more comprehensive look using a dashboard with multiple data points to share a school's progress over time. It's important that we're advocating for meaningful and comprehensive summary reporting that does not reduce a school or a district to a single letter grade. Let me see, what do we have? The one more, we have some excitement this week at Stevenson High School. Do we have any students who are in the production of Annie here this evening? They're probably practicing, right? And we also have the Franklin Players. So we have two big events this week. At Stevenson, we have Annie being performed on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Is that right? And the Franklin Players will be sharing their debut performance in the new Performing Arts Center of Beauty and the Beast. Yes, it is perfect timing. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday matinee. Is that correct? Okay. Tickets are available online, so good luck to the cast and the all-important crew at both schools this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. We have had many, many folks to celebrate this evening. We're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute break at this time. We encourage you to congratulate the honorees of the evening, and then we will continue with our meeting. We are at recess. so if you could take a seat, that would be appreciated. If you'd like to continue your conversation, you can take that out in the hallway. That would be great. Thank you. We're going to resume our meeting in about 30 seconds. We welcome you to take a seat if you'd like to continue joining us. If you'd rather chat, if you can move your conversations into the hallway, that would be appreciated. Thank you so much. Good evening. Welcome to the continuation of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting of March 20th, 2017. We are on item 3F on our agenda at this time. Does any board member have any written communications that they would like to share with the board? Seeing none, we are on to item 3G at this time. That is audience communications. Audience communications is designed as a time that the board can listen to members of the public, whatever comments you would like to share with us. We do ask that everybody would honor the 3-minute time limit, and the reason for that time limit is so that we can be fair to every speaker and make sure that everyone has a chance to be heard. Let me see here. Mr. Johnson has been our timekeeper for quite a long time now. If you are one of the speakers and if you hear a chime or a bell going off, you'll know that you hit your 3 minutes, and if you could wrap up your comments at that time, we would appreciate it. We have found that to be a little bit more polite way than interrupting a speaker. Our first speaker this evening is Doug Coates. Mr. Coates. I might want to mention also that the audience communication is a time that the board is setting aside time to listen to, but it's not a question and answer session. If there are questions to be answered, we will probably refer those to our superintendent if it's a day-to-day operational issue, or a response back from the board if it's more of a board issue. Mr. Coates.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the staffs of Cass Elementary, Garfield Elementary, and the Western Wayne Skills Center, and the district's expectations for packing up and closing these 3 buildings over the coming months. Although numerous inquiries have been made to the district administration, including the forums held in the fall and the schools themselves, and in the regular meetings that the LA leadership has with district administrators, there has been mostly silence on how much district-owned materials these teachers are expected to pack up with, or pack, and what compensation, if any, these teachers can expect. This has been discouraging to the staffs at these 3 buildings and to their colleagues as well, and I felt it was time to come directly to the Board of Education regarding this issue. At the forum presentation that was held in the fall, it was stated that the one-time cost for closing and consolidating the school communities was $50,000, and this information can still be found on the district website. And curious to know whether this money that's been sort of budgeted, whether it's budgeted or just stated, can teachers expect any part of those funds? Since the district's expectation seems to be, without actually being stated, that teachers are expected to help close down common areas and pack up district-owned materials, that it seems reasonable that the teachers should be able to participate in some of those costs. If that's not the case, then please make it clear that the district does not expect teachers to pack up anything that's not their own personal personal belongings. If there is an expectation that teachers are going to be doing extra work beyond what they personally have, then please make it clear that compensation is deserved for these efforts. Please don't ignore the extra time and work required of these teachers, as there seems to be no other plan for how to close these buildings up. These are the types of things that make staff feel, in spite of good words and kudos that they get, these are the types of things that make staff feel like their time is unappreciated. And it hurts morale at a time when we're trying to consolidate and build new school communities. In addition, please remember that the teachers in the receiving buildings typically have gone through the process of packing up their classrooms, moving them, and now they're going to be asked again this summer to relocate again, move down the hall, move across the building, et cetera. The Board of Education members could come to the 3 schools that I just mentioned and help with the process. And I'm not being sarcastic about that, but that's something that I'm sure the teachers would appreciate. If your first thought is that you don't have time because you have jobs and other responsibilities, that's exactly the point I'm making about the teachers in these 3 buildings. They have full-time jobs, they have families, and they can't just be expected to put in dozens of extra hours without some compensation for these efforts. And so please, we would not expect contractors and movers that we hire for our schools to work for free, and I hope that you don't plan on doing that for your employees as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Flanagan. Mrs. Flanagan.
I am here on behalf of our Garfield Grizzlies, and I want to thank so many of you who came. We talked about March is Reading Month, and many of you came and read to our students. They were so excited. A lot of them, especially preschools, had no idea what a Board of Education is, but somebody new came and read to them, and that's all they cared about. So I just want to thank you for helping us celebrate the final chapter of Garfield. So I have some notes for you. Mr. Johnson, thank you for reading to our kindergartners.
Thank you.
Mrs. Scott. Thank you. Mrs. Bradford. Mrs.
Thank you.
Bradford had a second grade class individually write letters to her.
Oh.
They like her hair and her earrings.
Yeah.
Mrs. Oakwist, I've heard a lot about your hair in the past when you read to my kids. Sorry, nobody commented on your hair this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new one for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. They got a little carried away with the stickers at preschooler. They left a preschooler alone with the stickers for this.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for supporting us. It was wonderful. It was the first day that Garfield had ever done something like this, and they were thrilled with it. So they have visitors come periodically to read, but we dedicated a whole day to have guest readers, and just thank you all for fitting it into your schedules to come to read to us. Even though we had a little, Mrs. Scott already came because of a rescheduled meeting that she had, and so she actually was in the building anyway that day, so it worked perfect for her.
It did.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Otto. Mr. Otto.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Otto. I am one of your high school English teachers over at Churchill High School. I've been working for you for a little bit over 22 years, and I felt it's time to, it's not necessarily stepping on toes, but I've heard a lot of things today about helping kids. I'm here to help the kids. I'm here to really advocate for my English students. And so as you go on and continue your board sessions of talking about budgets and things of that nature, that's what I'm here today for, and I really hope that you consider the information that I'm bringing to you. It's regarding your high school ELA departments and their departmental resources. These resources have been severely neglected for the past decade. The district supplied resource material is in a state of complete and utter dilapidation. It is an embarrassment to have to distribute copies of these texts to students, and it is a a task to get them to think that English is an important priority for LPS. You asked why or what? Here's a book textbook that I signed out to Aaron this year, and it looks good, sturdy, looks good book. All right, and it's a hardcover textbook, and it's all well and good. It looks good for mom and dad, but a good thing that Aaron's family likes to vacation on the beach because it turns into a paperback. Okay. One of the best students to come through Churchill High School, his name is Jonathan, wonderful young man. This was the book that that was signed out to him. And we have, Jonathan certainly didn't do this, okay? Here's the yellow wallpaper. Are we supposed to wallpaper the walls? It's, this also turns into a paperback. I'm frustrated. I like these kids. I'm here for these kids. I want you to understand what we go through in the ELA department. It's rough. These are the materials. I know that the math is receiving books, and social studies is receiving books, and science has received new books, and I saw that new pianos are coming to the school. But this is the department, folks, that 50% of what we do is reading. It's March's reading month, okay? We have to do something about this. English has been put on hold or ignored for far too long here. It has been 20 years since LPS. Anyone want to give me their time? It's been 20 years since LPS has made a real commitment to its high school ELA departments, especially its core classes of English 9, English 10, junior literature, and junior composition. These are the fundamental building block classes for preparing our students for college and career success. I'll just skip down to the bottom. Please take my word for it. You've got a couple of my former bosses. You had another boss over here, Mr. Willenborg. They will tell you that, if nothing else, I tell it as it is, okay? It's just the way I am. And I will make myself available to you for your study sessions. I will come in and I will discuss this at length with you. Please know that I am one of your resources, but we have to bind together to help these kids with the necessary materials. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers are Marlowe's Crab and Michael Parkinson.
Hi. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, President Burton, and Superintendent Oquist. We are the captains on the Livonia Warriors robotics team. My name is Marlowe's Crab, and I'm a senior at Churchill High School.
And my name is Miko Parkinson, and I'm a sophomore at Churchill. Our team is comprised of students from Churchill, Franklin, and Stevenson. Firstly, we would like to thank you for your continued support and appreciation of FIRST Robotics in Livonia Public Schools.
For an update on our competition season, I'll be talking about that. On February 21st, we hosted a bag and tag event with Caitlyn Rye of Kettering University in attendance. Bag and tag makes a build stop of all FIRST robots around the world. The robot is bagged in a huge plastic bag and officially marked with a numbered tag that must be delivered to competition undisturbed, or the team might be disqualified or made to pay penalties and time. Bag and tag is a big deal in FIRST Robotics. Currently, our robot, the Iron Kraken, is resting in his bag after our Centerline competition.
Centerline was very exciting. On March 10th, the Steamworks game at Centerline began with qualification matches, and the Iron Kraken proved to be a true competitor. He raced to stay high in the rankings and pulled his alliance through every match. The Livonia Warriors quickly established themselves as a lead team. On March 11th, as the competition progressed to the elimination rounds, the Iron Kraken was selected by the #1 Alliance captain out of West Bloomfield. The Livonia Public Schools advanced through the quarterfinals and semifinals to finish the competition in first place with their alliance for the Centerline District. We were also honored with the FIRST Robotics Chairman's Award as a result and immediately qualified to compete at state championships.
In closing, we are very grateful for your support and the use of the Dickinson Center. Our custom scale version of the Steamworks field, with its airships, feeders, lifts, and ropes, provide the difference in being prepared for our competition. We realize other schools in our area do not have this opportunity, and we do appreciate it and share it as often as possible. We hope by the time we come back next month, we will have hosted our Livonia Churchill District competition and will have competed at state championship. We hope to have a great report. Thanks for this opportunity to share with you. Looking forward to April.
Livonia Warriors.
Gear up.
Our next speakers are Brett and Cindy Fowler. Good evening. I'll hold the baby for a while.
I really didn't come with a prepared speech. I'm just kind of freestyling this as we go along. I wanted to come here. I have a list of names who I wanted to recognize, and it's been a very hard journey. Most of it's because I'm stubborn. I have a special needs 5-year-old son, nonverbal. He is in the middle of testing right now, critical testing. But here are some names, starting with Katie Dodge, Kathy Grainer, Mary Buscemi, Kristen Jacobson-Harm, Kathy Grainer, Carol DeBoudry, Shannon Matuska, Deborah Woodka, Libby Rogowski, Jennifer Terriall. All of these names that I mentioned in this piece of paper, the actually last paper that everybody signed up my son's IEP, I don't remember everything. We have a wonderful team. They've stood by us. They've held our hand through this whole process. Coming into Livonia School District, I had high standards, and I had very high expectations because I know my son is stubborn, kind of, and he has potential. And I know that the team that I mentioned has a very reputable background. So when I came to Livonia District, I heard really good things that you guys cater to special needs. So coming into it, I was very, had a lot of fears and worries. But I had a baby and kind of opened the door to kind of letting my son go, kind of like stepping back and just relying on these people, these caretakers and caregivers in my support team, which is the only support team that I have, to work diligently and around the clock. My husband too. We've all grown on to each other, and I just felt the need to come and share with you guys how proud I am of the team that God chose and put into my life. Without them, I wouldn't be able to stand here and acknowledge them, but they have opened my eyes to a different term of autism. I didn't want my son diagnosed or mislabeled at first, so stepping into the team that I have has really encouraged me and really uplifted me, and it's incredible. The team that I mentioned, I don't want to trade in, but I do have to trade him in because through all this testing, my son is actually going to be coming out of the hands of the team into another team. So I'm just hoping that this team, and I have high expectations, but I know that they'll be awesome, just like this team. So, and I didn't realize that my son's teacher would be here tonight, or his speech therapist. I didn't get the memo. So much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has been certainly a very full evening with a lot of folks to honor and a lot of community members who have chosen to take advantage of the opportunity to share their thoughts and comments with the board. We thank you for doing so. Please know that your comments, your accolades, and your calls to action are taken very seriously. And this Board of Education will do our very best to support not only the students, but the staff and the parents and the community members of Livonia Public Schools. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 3H, response to prior communications. I do not have anything for 3H at this time. Our next item on our agenda is item 4, our consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. 5A, meetings of the regular meeting of February 13th, 2017. 5B, meetings of the special meeting of February 27th, 2017. 5C, minutes of the closed session of February 27th, 2017. 5D, minutes of the special meeting of March 6, 2017. 5E, minutes of the closed session of March 6, 2017. 6A, bills for payment, March 21st, 2017.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mr. Johnson. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, or Mr. Centers, rather, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Mr. Centers says yes. Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda will be item 6B, adoption of the 2016-2017 second budget amendment. If you give us just a moment here. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Bonifield.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached amended budgets for the 2016-17 school year. General Fund, Funded Projects Fund, Athletic Fund, Food Service Fund, Special Education Fund, Debt Retirement Funds, 2013 Bond Series 1 and 2013 Bond Series 2, 2014 Refunding Bond, Capital Projects Funds, Sinking Fund, Technology Fund, Capital Projects Fund, 2013 Bond Funds, 2013 Bond Series 1, 2013 Bond Series 2, Scholarship Fund, Health and Welfare Fund.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonifield, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Smith, would you like to address this item for the board?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we had the opportunity to go over this budget amendment in detail at our last committee meeting, and I'd like to share with you some of the highlights that were discussed at that meeting. I'll start with the general fund. I'm happy to report that our revenues in the general fund are amended up $4.7 million, and there's three main reasons for that. The first is the passage of the enhancement millage. We're budgeting $4.5 million from that, and that represents about 80% collection. That's the advice that we were given by Wayne Risa. And the second increase is an $800,000 increase in the local revenues, and that's due to a one-time revenue distribution from Wayne Risa, and it's for the cost of special education transportation. So we've adjusted our budget to include that. The third major change in the general fund revenue is an $800,000 decrease in local revenues. In our proposed budget, we had included $800,000 for the sale of property. We are now amending the budget to take that out because we don't believe that we are going to close on that property by June 30th. So hopefully that's something we can include for our budget next year. Moving on to the expenditures in the general fund. Our general fund expenditures are down roughly $1 million from our first budget amendment. And the main reason for that is during our first budget amendment, we had an outside consultant that came in and provided that for us. And he started with the 15-16 actual expenditures as his starting point, and then he added in $1.8 million for the settled contracts that had been negotiated at the end of last year, and had also increased the budget by $300,000 across various support service lines. And what that first budget amendment did not take into consideration was some cost savings that we projected for our adopted budget, for our proposed budget. The largest example would be the retirement of teachers. You know, most teachers, when they're retiring, have reached the top end of the pay scale, and when those teachers are replaced, they're typically replaced by newer teachers that are starting off lower on the pay scale. So when we take that into consideration, we were able to decrease the budget by $1 million in our general fund. We also have some other funds that we are bringing forward for amendment. One thing that I had mentioned at the committee meeting was that our athletic fund and funded projects fund, although we as a district keep them separately for tracking purposes, when we report our annual expenditures to the state of Michigan, those are rolled into the general fund. Another change is in our athletic fund. The expenditures increased by roughly $400,000, and that isn't a new cost to the district. As I was going through the budget amendment, looking at it line by line, historically we've budgeted for the athletic directors in our general fund, and during this budget amendment, I moved the athletic directors over into the athletic fund. So you'll see an increase in expenditures, but there's a corresponding increase in the transfers off of that. So that is not a new cost to the district. It's just a switch in where we're reporting those costs. We also talked about the food service fund. There's an increase in expenditures, about $200,000, and that is because we're hoping to get some equipment purchased and in place before June 30th. So I adjusted the budget accordingly for that. And then lastly, our capital projects fund, we also made note that in the proposed budget, we had thought we would spend about $500,000 in our technology capital projects fund. We're now anticipating to spend about $150,000, and that's what I had touched base with our IT director, and that's what he's thinking will actually be spent by June 30th. So that money doesn't go anywhere. It just then becomes part of our fund balance, and then we'll have that money available to spend next school year. So those are just a few of the highlights. Again, we went into a lot of detail during our committee meeting, but I just wanted to mention a few of those things. Going back to the general fund too, we do, this does put us in a better position for the year. Our fund balance, what we're projecting for this year is just over $11 million, which represents 7.53%, which is better than where we started this year. And again, that's a large part due to that enhancement millage, so we're so grateful for our community for passing that. So with that, I'd like to recommend the board approve this adopted budget, or this budget amendment, and I can answer any questions if you have any.
Are there questions from board members? Mr. Centers?
Allison, you said that the collection rate we're anticipating for this year is about 80%. That other 20%, it doesn't necessarily mean we'll never see that money, correct?
Nope. Yeah, and this is something totally new for us and new for the county. We haven't collected a Wayne or a district-wide tax before like this. County, thank you very much. County-wide millage before, so the county, or I should say Wayne Risa, is closely monitoring this, and they're updating us as the revenues come in. Because, like, for instance, here in Livonia, we do have a very high collection rate, but it's not distributed based on how the funds have been received. It's equally distributed across all of the counties in Wayne County, or all of the school districts, in Wayne County. So it's something that we'll closely monitor and most likely update you again, too, on our final budget amendment.
So along those...
I'm just going to follow up with that quickly. On Friday, we were updated at our Wayne County Superintendent's meeting that initially we had looked at perhaps budgeting maybe about 85 or 90%. They encouraged us to bring that down to about 80% for budgeting purposes. Some municipalities have collected well under 50% of the revenue to date, and it was supposed to be collected 100% in January. And so certainly Wayne County RISA is working hard to work with each of the municipalities. As Mrs. Smith mentioned, Livonia generally has a very high tax collection rate, but this is, we receive those dollars proportionately based on our number of students as the monies are collected from across all of Wayne County. And so we do need to be judicious, especially this first year. We'll certainly have a better idea moving forward after this first year, but this first year, the recommended allocation that they've suggested we include in our local budgets is approximately 80%. We will be happy to adjust that up or down in June at our final budget amendment based on the collections that have taken place to date.
Mr. Centers, did you want to continue?
Just the other point, if those funds do come in delinquent, they will still come to us at some point, correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mrs. Mrs. Okus, did you want to add anything to that?
No, and that may continue for a couple of years, even after the close of that 6-year period, yes.
Thank you.
So I assume when those do become collectible, that they would be added to our budgets at the following budget amendment.
That's correct, yep.
Any other questions from board members or the superintendent? Comments? I have one question, Mrs. Smith. The one-time $800,000 Wayne Risa payment for transportation. Why is that a one-time payment? I mean, I know that they do cover a lot of our transportation costs, a lot of our special education costs, but why is this specifically a one-time?
Yep. Wayne County has a separate budget for their Act 18 program, and they were audited and found that they had a high fund balance as a proportion of their annual expenditures. So it was recommended to them that they distribute more funds, and so they can't project out from year to year what the Act 18 costs will be. Those are dependent on the needs in the county in that year. So they can say safely this year, based on the budgets that have been submitted by the districts across the Wayne County operating Act 18 programs, that they can distribute this $800,000 to the districts. And it's something that they'll have to reevaluate next year, see how those costs come in. And if they can, I think it's always their goal to try to get funds to the districts. But they won't know that until they see budgets for next year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bonifield, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 6C, approval of audit firm for 2016-2017. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District appoint the firm of Plant Moran to audit and prepare the financial report for the Livonia Public Schools for the 2016-2017 school year at a total cost of $44,600.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mrs. Smith, could you address this for us, please?
Yes. Yes, we'd like to get the board's approval to once again secure Plant Moran as our external financial auditor for the 2016-17 school year. A lot of advantages to using Plant Moran. I'll share 3 with you tonight. The first is what an outstanding organization it is. They are focused on that K-12 instruction organizations, so they stay on top of things. They're constantly sending out updates of different accounting standards that may have changed and keeping us up to date on things that we need to be aware of so that we can be prepared for our audit. The second, there's a huge advantage of maintaining a firm. We've used Plant Moran since 2012, and when switching auditing firms, there's inevitably a large learning curve for a new firm to come in and familiarize themselves with our ledger and with our staff, with our procedures. So that's something that by maintaining Plant Moran, they can come in and they get started right away. They can dig into the details and offer a lot of value in that way. And thirdly, it's a very fair price what they're asking. They're asking $44,600, which is an $1,100 increase from last year. But when we compare this to what we spent in auditing costs in 2011, it was $47,000. So even just compared to 2011, they're still below what we were paying for auditing services. So those are just a couple of the reasons why we recommend that we continue to use Plant Moran for our audit.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? Mr. Centers.
If people pay close attention, they'll notice we actually have 2 audit firms that work with the district. Can you explain
Sure.
why we have 2?
When we passed the 2013 bond, we hired a owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to serve in that capacity for us. And so because we're utilizing Plant Moran Cressa as our owner's rep, we also have hired, Yo and Yo, a separate auditing firm to come in and audit our bond and sinking fund. And that's not something that the district's required to do, but that's something we thought for transparency and just to assure our community that we're doing everything properly. We thought it would be best to have an outside firm come in. And so that's what we've done these last couple of years. Yo and Yo does our bond and sinking fund, and then Plant Moran does our general fund and all of the other funds.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, President Burton. Just to be, so that people that are listening, they hear Plant Moran. And we have Plant Moran that does the audit, and we have Plant Moran Cressa that's the owner's representative.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, they are two separate arms of that company.
Correct.
So when we talk about Plant Moran, we're not talking the same entity that's doing both the auditing and the owner's representative. Right?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that anybody listening understands that there's a distinction in those organizations. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burton.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 6D, approval of bid results for custodial cleaning equipment 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Johnson.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the purchase of 6 26-inch Ryder auto scrubbers and 10 26-inch stand-on auto scrubbers from HP Products in Belleville, Michigan for $159,516.78 and 10 16-inch cleaning path carpet extractors from KSS Enterprises in Plymouth, Michigan for $19,890 for a total of $179,406.78.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Francis, would you like to address this item with the board?
Sure, thank you. This cleaning equipment will be coming out of the 2013 bond as equipment, as mentioned, as well as just a little background. This is a purchase of equipment that we don't currently have. We have the push-behind scrubbers. We don't have this type of functionality, and this will help the teams, and this is spread throughout the district. This would help the teams who are doing the cleaning projects do them more efficiently, do them quicker, so they can get on to the next job. As you know, when we go into the summer, we put summer cleaning crews into the buildings. So we pull them out of some buildings and bring a team together. So this would be an efficiency piece, an update piece, and we have the money that was earmarked for it. So I would ask that the board approve this purchase.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the board or the superintendent? Mrs. Bonifield.
Mrs. Oquist, can I put you on this, Superintendent Oquist?
Yes,
Sorry.
scrubbers are my thing.
Well, I know we talked a little bit about the abysmal shape that our textbooks are in, and yet we can still buy scrubbers. Would you maybe just talk a little bit about why we seem to have these out of balance, why we can buy scrubbers but not textbooks, and we understand the importance and where we're behind, but just talk a little bit about the financial handcuffs that we have on us and where we can spend our money, and why we can buy pianos, but it's really difficult to buy textbooks.
Sure.
And let us know a little bit about that process and,
Sure.
and why we have those seemingly inappropriate balances between what we can and can't buy.
Sure, I'd be happy to. You know, as I think you know, our needs are great. They range from specific support to students that we would like to have in our classrooms, instructional resources for our staff and our students, as well as operational maintenance equipment, which you know for many years took some of the largest cuts in our budget over time. As part of specifically as part of the 2013 bond, the board, when we went to the community, we identified within our request for voters to see when they voted for the bond, we were able to delineate very specific purposes for which we would use the bond funds. So that was renovation of our facilities and our schools, upgrades with regard to mechanical, plumbing, electrical, site improvements, et cetera. Additionally, we talked about some site improvement with regard to press boxes or playgrounds, et cetera. If there is an area of need within the district not delineated in that language for the bond, we may not use bond funds for those purchases. So that's specific to the bond fund. With regard to our instructional needs, one of the things that certainly we highlighted throughout the process of talking about the Wayne County Enhancement Millage was the significant need that exists in instructional equipment and instructional equipment, instructional resources, and support for struggling learners. We identified all of those as priorities for the Wayne County Enhancement Millage funds. One of the things that we did, I think it was last spring, perhaps, we brought to the Board of Education a very comprehensive study of our textbook and resource needs within the school district. In order to update K-12, our instructional resources for students across the district, we would need approximately $7.2 million to do that. So certainly we realize there is significant need that exists. It is a priority item for us. You will see as we move forward in the next couple of years with regard to the Wayne County Enhancement Millage that we will be bringing recommendations for instructional resources, support to struggling learners, textbook purchases, et cetera. That takes time. That's a process that we need to go through. This is the first opportunity that we've had to grow our textbook resource budget and our instructional resource budget. As you know, unfortunately, in addition to the maintenance and operations, the textbook budget went from a budget that had many millions of dollars each year over the past 7 or 8 years to less than $1 million a year. So we have the district academic services department has worked hard to prioritize some of those needs. We're thrilled to be in a position to be talking about replacement of resources that we know are desperately needed in our classrooms. So that's certainly on our horizon. And we'll be continuing. We're working very hard right now to make some initial recommendations to the board to help bring some priority areas to you this spring, and you'll see that in our budgeting process. And that will continue over the next number of years as we judiciously utilize the resources from the Wayne County Enhancement Millage. Does that help clarify?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You bet.
If I might add one thing to your comments, Mrs. Oquist, when we, as a Board of Education, began looking at the items that are needed and desired to be put into our bond request to our community, the reason that instructional materials was not included is because it was not legal to include it. We would have loved to. It was everyone's first priority is, you know, if we're buying things, so let's buy books, and it wasn't legal. Wayne County Enhancement Millage, thankfully passed by our voters, is legal, and we are able to use it for instructional materials.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's one of the things certainly, absolutely, I think that's one of the things that across the school districts, each of the 33 school districts identified priority areas. For us, as you know, we talked about hiring and retaining staff, high-quality staff, enhancing our instructional resources for students and staff, bringing support to our struggling learners, and also growing our fund balance and providing financial stability for our district. So each of those were priority areas that the board and district administration identified, and I think that really resonated with folks because parents see what the needs are, our families see what the needs are. We know our needs are great, and we are anxious to begin responding to them.
Other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Bonifield?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford?
Yes.
Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
President Burden?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 6E, approval of agreement with Great Northern Consulting Company. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Frank?
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the hiring of professional real estate services from Great Northern Consulting Group, Ann Arbor, Michigan, to market the Nankin Mills, Western Wayne Skills Center, Heronville, and Clay sites, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute the final contract with Great Northern.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mr. Francis, would you like to address this item to the board?
Yes, thank you,
Nope.
President Burton. One of the things I want to preface with is that this agreement, this is an organization and a gentleman, Mr. Bill Bowman, that we've used in the past for marketing and consulting in real estate. I want to be clear, and we've discussed this at our committee meeting, but for those in the audience and those watching at home, Mr. Bowman and his company, he is not a real estate agent, nor is he a real estate broker. He is simply consulting and helping with his industry ties and know-how with regard to property value, and the best way to market sites for sale. The Board of Education, if this group chooses to sell a property or multiple properties, would be selling them independently and not using a broker or a real estate agent. So I just want to be very clear to those who are tuning in. So beyond that, we do have the several sites that the board has asked for us to look into the sale of. As Mrs. Smith mentioned earlier when she was giving some finance updates, we had presumed at one time that we would have a sale during the fiscal 17 year. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, seeing as how we're pushing late March at this point, and we're now getting into an agreement to market these sites, but we've had a lot of things going on this school year. And at this point, we would like to proceed, move forward, be able to explore further for the board the values and the promise potentially of any particular sale or bundle of sales. So I ask that the board approve the opportunity for us to have Mr. Bowman help consult with us for that purpose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oquist.
I just want to clarify that the Perrinville site, because we do have a Perrinville school,
Yeah.
the Perrinville site about which we're speaking is the site that is located at the junction of Farmington, Ann Arbor Trail, and Edward Hines. So it's that property on which the former Perrinville Schoolhouse sat. It did take a bit of time for that to get moved successfully to its new home at Greenmead. So that site is now prepared and ready to be sold.
Mr. Centers.
I just want to comment that I think marketing is essentially it is what Mr. Bowman does, but there's a lot that goes into the services he provides when it comes to surveying the site, planning out the lots, really looking at the sewers and utilities, and it's very, very extensive. So just so people know that he isn't just trying to sell the property, but there's a lot of legwork that goes.
Yeah, he's trying to help us sell the property as far as what the best use is. They're unique parcels of land, and it's not the same as selling your home. And this is, like I said, unique pieces of land in a neighborhood or in areas that we're a little bit landlocked in Livonia, so how these can be used and the best possible use for them to bring the highest potential price for the board, he can help guide us in that area.
Thank you.
I agree. Not that you need my agreement, but.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Burton. I also wanted to make it clear that this is a contract price, and he's not on a commission.
Correct.
As it relates to any sale. This is a straight contractual agreement that we have.
Right,
and there will be
correct.
a price.
And there's some hourly rates in there and some no higher thans in there as well.
Right. Thank you.
Mrs. Oquist.
Yes, my final comment on this, we often have an opportunity to hear from folks as we do talk about the budget, and I just want to refresh our community's memory. I know the board is certainly aware of this, that as we receive feedback from the community during the part of our last budget forums, a high item on the priority list with regard to revenue enhancement was for the Board of Education and the district to consider the sale of vacant property. And so with regard to valuing the programs and the people that we have in place in the district, and a desire to see those maintained. There were a number of items that our community and our staff shared were priority areas for revenue enhancement, and the sale of vacant property was one of them. And as you know, we've included that in the budget the past couple of years as a way to continue to grow our general fund revenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments from the board or superintendent?
And for what it's worth, one more note is I compared side by side this agreement with the agreement we entered into when we were looking at the Washington and Aiken sites in 2014, and line by line, the prices have not increased what he is charging us.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 7, personnel matters, and 7A is teachers for approval. May I have a motion, please?
You may, just 1 second. President Burden.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and offer employment for the 2016-17 school year to the teachers listed on the attached document.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Bonnefield. Mr. Winry, would you like to address this for us?
Thank you. The teachers before you were interviewed along with other qualified candidates for the vacancies within our instructional programs, and we believe these teachers to be the most qualified for the positions. I would add to that the positions listed are within the current year's budget, and we recommend approval of the employment of these employees.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board or superintendent? God bless you. Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Bonnefield. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Bonnefield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item is item 7B, retirements. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions of appreciation for the services rendered by Carol Dazer, Julie Erickson, Teresa Simpson, and Deborah Squirewell.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Winry.
Thank you. These employees that are retiring represent a total of nearly 90 years of experience with the school district. Rather remarkable. And on behalf of staff, I'd want to thank these individuals for their loyal and dedicated service and congratulate them on their decision for retirement and wish them the best. We recommend that the board adopt the resolution for these employees.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board?
Congratulations.
Absolutely. Congratulations, and thank you so much for your service. We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Bonnefield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item is 7C, sympathy resolution. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Bradford.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached sympathy resolution for the family of Richard Austin.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bradford, would you please read the resolution, then we will open it up for board comments.
Yes. Whereas the Board of Education was deeply saddened to hear of the untimely death of Richard Austin, and whereas He was employed by the Livonia Public Schools School District as a physical education, business, and marketing teacher, as well as a longtime coach at Churchill High School, and as an online learning teacher at the Livonia Career Technical Center from August 1996 to March 2017. And whereas he consistently demonstrated his outstanding dedication to students, parents, and staff, and whereas Richard Austin will be profoundly missed by his colleagues and the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District offers its deepest sympathy to the family and friends of Richard Austin.
Are there questions or comments from board members or the superintendent? Mr. Centers.
This was particularly personal for me because he was a former coach of mine, and I shared a story with some of the Churchill folks that my junior year, I had a pretty good year in athletics, and senior year, it was obvious that I'd been surpassed by some of our underclassmen, my limited abilities. But he encouraged me to stay on and mentor some of the younger folks on the team, and it was a really good experience for me. I learned a lot about leadership. It probably has something to do with how I am today, and at the end of the year, he gave me the Coaches Award for it, and it was just a really great experience in my life, and really touched me, and I'm sure he touched many others as well. So he will have an impact well beyond his years, because I'm sure others have learned from his great dedication.
Thank you. Comments from other board members or the superintendent?
Just a note that certainly our hearts go out to Annette and his two children and his parents, his entire family. Many of his colleagues are here this evening, and we know that Rick will be sorely missed by those who loved and cared about him, certainly by our entire district, and our hearts are with his family.
Are there any cabinet members that may like to share any comments? I think a lot has been said already. There were many folks who were able to offer support to Rick's family during his illness, and that were able to participate in his funeral services. And we are grateful that it is not frequent that we lose an employee while they are still employed and not in the retired phase of their life. We're very sad for Rick that he did not get to the point of retirement, but rather we lost him while he was still serving our district and our students and our community. Our heartfelt sorrow and our sympathy goes to his family and his friends. We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burton.
Yes, motion passes. We are on item 8, hearing from board members. Item 8A is the second reading of Board Policy BCB, procedures during meetings. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Johnson.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the Policy Committee and adopt board policy language per the attached document for the following. BCB, procedures during meetings.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mrs. Oquist, would you like to add anything to this item?
Thank you, President Burton. As we shared at the first reading, the bylaws of the board, BCB, we state the general order of the agenda for each of our board meetings, although that can be modified by the president of the board and the superintendent prior to the meeting and prior to publishing the agenda. However, as part of our work on our high-impact school governance and with our desire to share information more readily with more folks in our community, as President Burton mentioned earlier this evening, we changed the order of the agenda to move the district update as part of the communications items. So since our Our agenda is listed as part of one of our bylaws. That change was made, and we'd like to recommend that for approval.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any comments or questions from board members? All right, seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Item 8B is second reading of Board Policy BHA, Code of Ethics. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Frank.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the Policy Committee and adopt board policy language per the attached document for the following BHA Code of Ethics.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mr. Centers. The Code of Ethics for this Board of Education is very, very important. It is something that we took a very serious look at and cleaned up a document that had grown to some 15 or 16 pages, which was largely unreadable and unmanageable. It didn't really mean anything to anybody when it's that redundant and lengthy. And we cleaned it up and we boiled it down to what's really important as far as behaviors of this Board of Education and that our community can expect of us. That Code of Ethics is reviewed in great detail every year at this time. And so far, for the last 4 or 5 years or so, we've tweaked it a little bit every single year. But it is very important. It is something that this Board of Education feels strongly about. We are going to, at this time, so the public is aware of the contents of our Code of Ethics. It's not that long anymore. Now we cleaned it up. We are going to read that for our public. We know it very well, but we want you folks to understand what we're talking about here. There are a number of items in it. We're simply going to go down the table of our board and have each one of us read these items until we have completed the document. I'm going to begin, and then Mr. Johnson, if you can follow, and we will just keep right on going. Bylaws of the Board, BHA, Board Operations Code of Ethics. As members of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education, we shall promote the best interest of the school district as a whole and will make decisions that place student learning and the success of all students first by adhering to the following educational and ethical standards. As a board member,
I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, height, weight, marital status, handicap, or disability.
I will be a personal advocate for the good work of the district.
I will focus board action on policy making, strategic planning, and designating and evaluating the superintendent.
I will recognize that the role of the board is to govern and oversee the management of the district. I will delegate authority to the superintendent for the day-to-day operations of the district and will not seek to participate in the day-to-day operations.
I will review and evaluate all policies, bylaws, procedures, and processes, and will work to make desired changes so they will be current and relevant.
I will follow established board operating procedures.
I will come to board meetings prepared to discuss and take action on all agenda items. I will study the material in the board packet and follow established board operating procedures for additional information prior to each board meeting.
I will give the superintendent or board president notification of my concerns prior to the board meetings so that the concerns can be properly addressed.
I will understand that I have not only the right, but the duty to express my views and opinions and ask questions at the board table, and will make a good faith effort to understand the views of others.
I will recognize that the board must make decisions as a whole in public. I will render all decisions based on the available facts and my independent judgment, and I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to individuals or special interest groups.
I will avoid being placed in a position of conflict of interest, and if such a conflict is unavoidable, I will disclose such interest and abstain from voting on such matters.
I will respect the consensus and decisions of the board and support their implementation.
I will recognize that while I am free to express my personal views, the board president is the spokesperson for the board, and the superintendent is the spokesperson for the district.
I will be respectful and listen to all ideas presented to the board, be it from parents, staff, students, community members, other board members, or other stakeholders. I will listen and then refer any person to appropriate personnel.
I will communicate to other board members and the superintendent expression of public reaction to board policies and school programs.
I will exercise caution when communicating between and among board members via electronic communication and will abide by the Open Meetings Act.
I will hold confidential all matters that, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals, schools, or the district. I will respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law, including closed session discussions.
I will stay informed about current educational issues by individual study and through participation in programs providing needed information. For example, those sponsored by my state and national school board associations.
I will take no private action that will compromise the board, the administration, or the district.
I will refrain from using my board position for personal or partisan gain.
I will support the employment of those persons best qualified to serve as district staff.
I will support and protect district personnel in the proper performance of their duties.
I will, along with my fellow board members, review, revise, and sign this code of ethics annually at the beginning of each year.
The board president will ensure that persons addressing the board follow established guidelines as outlined in board policy.
The board president will advise persons addressing the board to do so in a respectful manner and not allow rude and indecent behavior, profane or indecent discourse to be directed to the board, the superintendent, or others during board meetings.
The board president will ensure that all board members are given an opportunity to express their views and will work toward building consensus among all board members.
The board president will follow parliamentary procedure to the extent that it does not conflict with board policy.
That is the total of our code of ethics. Are there questions or comments by the superintendent or other board members?
We do have a large copy of the Code of Ethics, President Burton, to our left of the board table that we would ask board members to sign, and then Mrs. Wozniak will have that framed and mounted in the boardroom.
Thank you. Thank you to those in our audience who indulged us by listening to that. It is something very, very important to us, and we take it very seriously. I thank my fellow board members for spending a lot of time and effort in making sure that this is a living, breathing document, and it is open for revision as we go through and take care of it annually. Right now, we have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mr. Centers. And Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Bonifield?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burden?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item, last item on our agenda this evening, is hearing from board members. What this board decided to do a number of years ago was, rather than hearing from all 7 of us and getting a whole lot of repeated information, we designate one individual to give a lot of thank yous on behalf of the Board of Education and comments on behalf of the board. Tonight that will be Mrs. Bonifield. At the conclusion of Mrs. Bonifield's comments, others are certainly welcome to add anything that they would like to do, or like to add rather. Mrs. Bonifield.
Thank you, President Burton. The first thing I'd like to do is thank our audience members that came forward to speak, specifically about the textbooks. That has not gone unnoticed by the board. What I do encourage, and I know that there are several other items of concern of the staff, is that we as a board, Superintendent Oquist and many of our cabinet members go to our legislators constantly and let them know what the problem is. Part of the issue that we have is that we have a glorious balanced budget at the end of every school year, which is what we are required to do. Unfortunately, the legislature ticks off their little box that says that we have a balanced budget. What they are not looking at are the holes in our education where in the classroom, part of it is they pat themselves on the back about they're giving public education more money than they ever have in the past. And while that's true, those dollars are not going into our classrooms. And that is where we're feeling the pain. They will allow us to pass bonds so that we can make all these capital expenditures, have beautiful buildings, have, great equipment. But what they don't realize is that we're millions of dollars behind in textbooks, and whatever they give us with the enhancement millage or the Wayne Risa dollars, it will take us years and years to be able to compensate for the destruction that has happened to public education over the last 10 years. And that includes our textbooks, our learning materials, our supplies, and the wages to our teachers and to keep our staff at top level. So we know and we want to hear from you, but please go to your legislators and tell them and give them these stories. They're heart-wrenching stories. And when we come and see the textbooks that literally the pages are falling out of, I don't think our legislators understand that they don't provide us enough funds to take care of those. So please, and I've talked about this before to some individuals, is I think it would be great if we could get a writing campaign within the schools, have all the schools collect the letters and all these heart-wrenching stories about what's going on in our district, get them together, box them up, and send them from every single building to each of our legislators, and to have all in one day, literally thousands of letters hit Lansing to tell them what the problem is, and to give those impactful stories from the people that it's directly affecting. And the students can be a part of that too. But we really need to get Lansing to understand that we need the operating dollars, and that they have us so hogtied on where we can spend our dollars and how we can spend our dollars that it just, we need to be able to bring public education back to, the glorious days when we were able to do all of these things for our students and make their public education the most impactful that it can on our students. So that's my soapbox. I want to just reiterate the sympathy that we feel for Richard Austin's family, and the gratitude for his spending so much time and giving so much to our students, and that he will be fondly remembered for years to come. I'd like to thank the Emerson school students that brought their artworks today. Brandon Adamus, Madeline Johnson, Jackson Lewis, Caitlyn Playtech, and Jane Schwartz. Again, a great representation of what our outstanding students can do with their talents. I'd like to thank our two Golden Apple recipients, Kathy Baldwin and Heather Sullivan. And the comment that I made to Mrs. Baldwin when I hugged her was, volunteers are the icing on our cake. We provide so much for our kids, but the volunteers can really step in and just put that cherry on top so that we can really do what we can for our students. A recognition to our state wrestling champ, Nathan Anza. Congratulations to him. What what else do we have? We had so much going on today. We had, teachers. We hired a couple new teachers. Congratulations to them. And as well, on the other end of the spectrum, our retirements. Congratulations, and thank you so much for all your years and dedication to our district. In the face of a lot of struggles in public education, Livonia has some of the most amazing teachers, and through everything that all the struggles that public education is up against right now, our teachers always put the students first, and just make them all feel very important, and give them the best of education that they can possibly do every day of the week. I can't say enough about our teachers and our staff and how wonderful they are. And I'm going to do one more thing. I want to congratulate, so we work really hard on our continuing education because we obviously believe education is important. And none of us were born Board of Education members, so we all work really hard. And I'm really happy to say that we're getting closer to being an honor board and having every single one of us certified. So Liz Jarvis has gotten her board certification, so if you walk into the front lobby, she has her red dot by her name. So one more red dot. We only have a couple more to go. We have Dan, Mr. Centers, received an award of merit, which is continuing education, and also we accumulate hours for doing extra things, going to extra seminars, having the MASB come in and talk to us, and providing information. So that all adds up. And also to President Burton. She has become a master board member. And so we are very pleased that all of us have continued to earn our board certifications. And again, Mrs. Bradford and Mrs. Franks are like digging in deep, and so they're on their way. So we're really finally, after a lot of years, on our way to being an honor board, and we're so pleased about that.
Pressure's on.
It is. Thank you, Ms. Bonfield. Are there other board members who would like to add anything to the board comments this evening? Mr. Senator?
I just, my wife and I went out and enjoyed an evening at Churchill and saw Into the Woods, and it was a really great production. The students, the stage, the lighting, everything was excellent. The CAPA program obviously is a great program, but it's nice to see it up close and personal, and it was just very enjoyable.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Well, it wouldn't be a board meeting if I didn't put in a plug for the Livonia Warriors. Once again, everyone is invited to come to Churchill High School April 6th, 7th, and 8th for the Robotics Competition. If you've never been, you are in for a wild ride. It's free, which is my favorite price. And you are welcome to come and go, stay as long as you want, and join in the excitement. Bring your kids, bring your family. You've not seen anything like this before. And congratulations to our wonderful Livonia Warriors for their fantastic job at Centerline.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, President Burton. And at the risk of being a little bit repetitious, a couple of weeks ago on a Friday evening, I went over to Churchill. They had the MSBOA. There were some competitions going on, and I was able to hear the Churchill band, outstanding band, very large, under the direction of Liz Herring, and Stevenson's band under the direction of Heather Wickman. They were both outstanding. I also ran into Mike Race, and he mentioned to me, he says, what you got to do is you got to go see the sight reading. And if you've never seen the sight reading, it is the most amazing thing that you'll ever see, because they get 5 minutes to pick up and look at a piece of music that they've never seen before, And what they sound like in 5 minutes is incredible.
And they can't play their instruments during that.
You
5
cannot,
minutes.
the only thing that they can do, and it's very highly regulated, they count down, you get 5 minutes. They have someone timing it. And the only thing that can happen during that 5 minutes is that the instructor can go through the music and talk about various aspects of it. And the minute they hit 5 minutes, boom, you're done, and you have to play. And it was amazing to watch the music instructors, both Liz Herring and Heather Wickman, what they did in that 5 minutes. And to see how the students reacted, how well they were versed in Heather went through, and at points she just talked about various points in the music and said something, and the students in unison, yes, yes. It was just incredible to watch. So that was wonderful. They did an outstanding job. Then my wife gave me walking orders tonight that I had to read this, and I would have anyway. But on March 13th, 3 Stevenson choirs performed at the District Choral Festival under the direction of Mr. Byron Turner. And those were the Singing Spartans, the Symphonic Choir, and the Symphonic Women's Choir. All 3 groups received a Division I rating, which qualifies them for the State Choral Festival. So congratulations to all of them. In addition, there was, last weekend, there were 23 events from the Stevenson High School Instrumental Music Department that participated again in the MSBOA State Solo and Ensemble Festival at South Lyon High School. In order to, these were in order to qualify for states, they had to receive a 1 in the district competition in January just to get to where they were now. Out of the 23 events that participated, 18 of the events received a 1, and many of them received all A's. So we've got a tremendous group from Stevenson High School. A lot of them have qualified for the state solo ensemble, so congratulations to them. Our music departments are doing an outstanding job. Thank you.
And they have produced a music teacher, Mr. Johnson's daughter, Melissa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Jarvis.
And to build on what Mr. Johnson was saying, Churchill sent almost 50 students to the states this past weekend for solo and ensemble, and everyone there received either a 1 or a 2. So again, the music programs are rocking. Congratulations.
Any other comments? Mrs. Frank?
I think this is our first meeting since, obviously from the windstorms, but also that day that we had horrible storms and the buses were disrupted and dismissal was disrupted. So for all of you who took care of the kids, I was on my way to Ohio and kept getting messages. And so I just wanted to say thank you to our staff, to our administration who housed lots of kids down here in the basement when the buses could not get to where they needed to go. And you all took care of the kids and did a fantastic job of corralling children who were scared and who didn't know what was going on. So I think these are all examples of how our staff just steps up. It's not just what their job is, but you continually step up and do things that are not necessarily in your parameters, but you do it fantastically, and student safety is such a priority for our staff. And so I loved the communication that came out. This is what's going on. This is when they will be released. This is where they are, so that the parents knew exactly where your kids were and that they were being taken care of. So I just wanted to commend the staff on that. You guys did a fantastic job on that. So thank you. And Mrs. Oquist was doing, clapping for them. So thank you to get everybody corralled in here. So thank you.
Mrs. Oquist, without taking too long of a story, Mrs. Oquist walked down the hall and face to face with 200 elementary schoolers who were walking down the stairway and into this boardroom. And
climbing on our chairs.
Oh, yeah. Got 200 elementary schoolers back under control very quickly. Talk about everybody pitching in, including our superintendent. Yeah. Any other comments from the board this evening? Thank you so much to those of you. We've got a rather large number who hung in there the whole board meeting, and this was not a short meeting, so thank you for hanging in there with us. Thank you again to the parents, the staff, the community members who pitch in and do everything that they can to make our students' education terrific. It makes me very proud to be part of Livonia Public Schools. Have a wonderful evening. We are at the end of our agenda. We are now adjourned.